In this video, I'm going to cover some common mistakes we found while correcting your letters. So let's have a look at the list of mistakes we've made. So we're going to talk about subject-verb agreement. I'm briefly going to touch upon two types of tenses, present simple, present continuous. Then something about essays, what do you do with your essays? The articles a versus an, and some common spelling mistakes. Now these are things that basically really drastically lower your mark, right? If you make one of these mistakes, you'll probably have a 4 or 3 on the language part of your formal letter. So these are things to look at. So let's start with subject-verb agreement. So what is subject-verb agreement? Subject-verb agreement means that the subject and the verb have to be in agreement, right? So in this case, he, she, and it means having the extra s. If you look at the list of the six different types we have for the verb to live, you see that we only have the extra s here for he, she, it, right? He lives in Groningen. That makes sense. There are some difficult examples. If we look at this one, the one who lived. Why is this difficult? Well, you don't really have the main part of the subject right before the verb, right? We have it somewhere over here, so that makes it a bit more difficult. But still, one is he, or you could say he who lived, it who lived, she who lived. So you still get the extra s. The man who has 5 children. Why is this one difficult? Because you have 5 children. You know, that might put you on the wrong foot because you might think, aha, children is plural. So the man who has 5 children eats oats for breakfast, but it's still man, which is the main part of the verb, which is basically the person who's it's about, and not these 5 children. Has the government considered all the options? The government, even though it's more than one person, it's still an it, basically. So has the government considered? We still have the has form of to have, which is he has. Does the group of children eat meat? Also very difficult, because we have group and we have children. And even though you might say, well, group is more than one person, that might be a plural form as well, we still consider group a singular enkelvoud word, right? Because group is one thing, it's one group. So that's why we consider it a singular he form or it, and it has does, right? Now mind that we have does the group, so this verb must be in agreement with group, not eats, right? So we don't have eats. That's incorrect. Does the group of children eat? Okay. So is the subject of your sentence a he, a she, or an it? Don't forget your extra es. This is subject-verb agreement, and you'll definitely see in your test something like SVA if you make these mistakes. This is something that really lowers your mark. So pay attention to these things and check whether you have your subjects and your verbs in agreement. Right? So let's have a look at the tenses. Present simple, present continuous. So let's cover the basics. So what is present simple? Well, we use present simple for things that happen always, never, regularly, opinions, general facts, etc. Right? That's when we use present simple. And when we use present continuous, we mostly talk about things that happen now, or things that are going on now, things we are seeing, things we're experiencing. So, if you have some sentences, what are you doing? Why are you speaking while I'm speaking? This is correct, right? We're looking at someone, this person is doing something, he or she is speaking, and I am speaking too, right? So we see this happening. The students are reading books and they are eating sandwiches. It's something that's probably going on now, so we can see them read their book and we can see them eat their sandwich, so present continuous. They are reading their books and they are eating sandwiches. Now, if we look at present simple, we have I live in Groningen. That's not something that's going on now, because live is a verb that doesn't get, in this context, present continuous, because I live here for a certain amount of time. So that's why we use present simple, because it's a general state of fact. The country is in a lockdown following the coronavirus outbreak. Is in a lockdown, again, present simple, because it is a general fact. Is it impossible to say the country is being in a lockdown? Yes, because it doesn't really fit the context of the sentence, right? Is being is not something that appears often on its own, so it's probably in some sort of passive construction. So we don't say the country is being in a lockdown, but the country is in a lockdown, because we're stating, again, a general fact, right? So if we talk about facts, if we talk about things that happened, if we talk about things that we simply want to say, things, if we want to give our opinion, you always use present simple. If you're talking about things that are happening now, something that's going on right now at the moment, then you use present continuous, right? So only use present continuous when you're really talking about something that's going on right now, and don't overuse it, because some people tend to overuse present continuous, and that's of course not what we want. So facts, things that happen always, never, regularly, present simple. Things that happen now, are going on right now as we speak, present continuous. Okay, let's have a look at some examples from your letters, and let's see whether we can adjust these to make sure that they're correct. So this is one that says, the animals that are used for the production of meat are producing a lot of carbon dioxide. Now, in essence, this is not an incorrect sentence, right? This sentence is not incorrect, because it is true that at the moment, while we're speaking, these animals produce carbon dioxide. But since we're not referring to one particular instance in which this happens, we don't use present continuous. We tend to use present simple. The animals that are used for the production of meat produce a lot of carbon dioxide. Right? It's more general. We're stating a general fact. We're not saying that we're looking at a particular type of animal and we are looking at it right now in front of me, and right as I'm looking at it, it's producing carbon dioxide. That's not what we're doing. Right? It's general. And since it's a general thing, we use present simple. Again, another good example, a correct example. I'm writing you regarding the recent news that the government has decided to prohibit meat and dairy products in order to cut down their carbon footprint. I am writing you regarding. That's going on right now. And this is an example in which you're allowed and you should use present continuous. Right? The simple, everyone knows sentence, I am writing you regarding. That's present continuous. Okay, this one is also interesting. This letter is being written regarding the news on the illegalization of meat and dairy products. Now, this is a weird construction, right? Because what you're doing is you're changing the active sentence into a passive sentence. Probably because I said try to use passive sentences. But here again, you don't have to do this. You don't need to avoid I here. You could simply say, I am writing regarding the news on the illegalization of meat and dairy products. That's fine. That's correct. It's a good sentence to say that. So you don't need to rewrite this sentence into this active sentence into a passive sentence to avoid the I. That's not necessary. So this one's incorrect and this one's incorrect. All right? You don't use are producing, you use produce, and you don't say is being written, you say I am writing. Okay? So let's have a look. To summarize, don't use present continuous when you're talking about facts, opinions, and things that happen in general, things that are scheduled. Now, just to give a bit more information on present continuous, you can find lots and lots of information on the internet about this topic, right? So don't stick to this if you find it unclear. There's a lot of information on the internet. But as I've shown in class, I think a few weeks ago, if we have a timeline, and this is the past. This is the future. And we have the present right here. The present simple appears around the present, right? So present simple is around the present. Why is it around the present? Because facts, opinions, things that happen in general, especially general thing, is important. The scheduled things, right? Those things can happen in the future because it's scheduled. So if you say the train goes at 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock is tomorrow, 4 o'clock is today, 4 o'clock in 2-3 weeks, 4 o'clock, we still have this schedule, but it's still present simple. Opinions, I think this is a good idea. That's an opinion, right? It can be today, it can be over a few months, it can be over a year, whatever you like. So it's an opinion. That's why it's present simple. So it's not really locked to the present. Whereas present continuous is something that's happening now, which is why I always put this arrow when I write present continuous. Because that's something that's going on right now. You can basically look at it. So don't overuse present continuous. Try to use present simple when you definitely know it's not something that's going on right now. Okay? So what do you do with your essays? Right? Because that's confusing, all these essays. We use apostrophe S only when A, you're talking about possession, in the case like, this is my sister's bike, or you're contracting has or is. So he's watching Netflix. Right, this is a contraction, which you're definitely not going to do on your essay, because you shouldn't do that in formal writing. But what we don't do is use apostrophe S in plural form. So if we have a look at this list of words, we have cat, house, student, teacher, country, party, and we have incorrect plural forms, right? Cats is not apostrophe S. Houses is not apostrophe S. Students, not apostrophe S. Teachers, no. Countries, no. Parties, no. Only when we talk about possession in this case, right? So this might be the cat's house, right? That's correct, because cats it indicates that it's something this cat owns for some reason. If you want to give the correct plural form, we simply eliminate the apostrophe, right? This is correct. Cats, houses, students, teachers. But mind this, country, the Y changes into this. Party, the Y changes into this as well. Okay? So that's something to look at as well, because this is also one of these so-called brugklas mistakes where, it's not good for your results. Now, a question could be, what if you want to say the student's housing, right? Because we have more than one student. Good question. What do? In that case, you add the apostrophe, right? If you add the apostrophe, we know that this is possession and plural, right? Okay, good. How about A versus an? What do we do again? So if a noun starts with a vowel, it's preceded by an an. So let's have a look. We live in an old house. Now this is incorrect, because I said vowel as noun, but this is not a noun, this is an adjective. But if we look at they live in an apartment, apartment is a noun, right? A substantive naamwoord. Do you have an umbrella? Umbrella is also a noun, right? So if the noun starts with a vowel, and sometimes Y, it's preceded by an. So an old house, an apartment, an umbrella. If the noun starts with a consonant, which is basically every other letter, or starts with a U that's pronounced like a Y, you get a. So, this is a new car again. I have an example with an adjective, not very good, but still. Adjective, a new car. We're taking a bus. You should make a U-turn. Now this is interesting because this is not U as in the vowel, but it sounds like a J or a Y as in U. So in IPA it will be U-turn, right? And this is a J sound, so that's why we get a. Now there are some things to look at, right? If you look at an hour, the H in hour is silent. So actually you're saying something like this. And since the H is silent, we have un, because then we have the sound like a vowel. Can we schedule a one-to-one meeting? If you look at A1, the O is not the first sound you make. The first sound you make is W, right? W, O, N. One. So since we have the W sound in IPA, you get a. Okay? Okay, let's have a look at some of the common spelling errors. We have the words live, life, lives, and live, right? All the same family of words. Where do you live? Which is a verb. I enjoy my life, a noun. Many people have lost their lives to COVID-19, a noun again. And this is an amazing live show. Live show, it's an adjective because it modifies show. So we get a V. So that's something to look at, right? The V and the F, what do we do with those things? You can't say, I enjoy my life. That's incorrect. Where do you live? Incorrect. Yeah? They have lost their lives. Incorrect. This is a life show. Incorrect. Okay? So live, live, life, lives. Then we have to and to. So the difference is basically if it's one of these adjectives, used for adjectives and adverbs to say that something is more than is good, necessary, possible. He's far too young to go on his own. Accidents like this happen all too often, much too often. It's too soon to say that he'll survive. It's only too easy for them to deny responsibility. Right, so you know what it will be in Dutch. Also, if you want to say to as in as well, and this is what we would say ook, and this is what we say te. Can I come to? When I've finished painting the bathroom, I'm going to do the kitchen too. Okay, very is the same meaning. This is also to. And if you look at the other options, like it's used here, to live. So you need to feel the difference, right? I put these here because in all the other cases, it's this one, right? This is for these cases, and all the other cases, it's the one with one O. Okay, let's move on. Which. So this is the correct form, in which case you want to say the person, or let's say the thing which I like, and she is a witch, right? This is the person with the nose and the broomstick, and this is the correct form to write this. Okay, so mind that as well. Then we have another one, which is quite interesting. While I erase my notes, your and your. So in this case, y-o-u-r is a possessive pronoun, jou. This is your life. You're too late. You are too late. Right, so don't do this, because this is very basic mistakes, right? If you say you're too late, that's too basic. That's a basic mistake. Don't make those mistakes. How to say you're too late, like this, or you are too late. Okay? And then we have this one. Haha, no pun intended. Then and then. So if we use the E form when we talk about time and order, so first we'll eat something, then we'll start our project. That's this one, and everything else is than with an A. I think you are a better teacher than he is. Right? Comparisons. You're making a comparison here between you, this person, and he, the other person. So then you use A. If you use then in a time order, you use E form. Right? Okay, let's have a look at some of your example sentences, because there were some good example sentences. The first one is the incorrect form in some cases, and the second one is my corrected option. So what I would say instead of what you said. As a vegetarian, you would need to get these vitamins from other sources. What we want to do is we want to avoid this, right? You would. So I would say something like, vegetarians would need to get these vitamins from other sources. It's the same sentence, but you avoid using you. However, it can be replaced by a good plant-based diet, so it's not that big of a deal. This is very informal, right? We're not speaking to each other. We're speaking to people we don't know, so we don't say things like, not a big of a deal. So you can say, however, it can be replaced by a good plant-based diet, so the lack of meat protein should be of no concern. You're saying the same, but you're saying a bit more formally. That means that the population of New Zealand will become vegetarians, but is it healthy? Why would you ask a rhetorical question? Right? Makes no sense. Don't do that. You could say something like, however, it can be questioned whether the compulsory change in diet is healthy for New Zealanders. Right? My opinion about the approach from the government is, and the thing we don't really like is this part. The approach from the government. We call this wordy, right? So you have a sentence that's what I would put in as wordy. You're saying something with too many words that can be said with less words. So if we look at my example, my opinion about the government, you use a possessive S, approach is blah, blah, blah. Same thing, less words, less wordy. Forcing people vegetarianism down their throats, something you don't want to say either. Right, down their throat, very weird. You could say something like obliging people to follow a vegetarian diet. We all know that we have to cut down our carbon footprint. There is a consensus that cutting down the carbon footprint is a priority. Same sentence, without using this informal construction. If you're eating meat for your whole life, you could say something like, when one has been eating meat for their entire life. Right, that's a bit more formal. You're kind of saying the same thing, and you don't want to use this too often, so you don't want to say one everywhere, but it's kind of the best solution in this case. A good sentence for your reason of writing is, I'm writing this letter regarding the illegalization of large-scale meat and dairy production and consumption. By 2022, only people who own cows and chickens can eat their meat and dairy. This big decision will affect everyone in New Zealand and has great consequences. This is a good starting sentence, right? This is a good introduction to your letter, because you're saying everything, you're saying what you already know, and you have some sort of opinion in this sentence. You don't use I, you use I and I am writing, but that's fine. So don't worry about this. But the rest of the sentence is good, right? It's formal, it's what you want to say, and it summarizes what you already know. So this is a very good sentence to start your letter with. Good work. Right, so these were the basic mistakes I wanted to cover. If you have questions regarding these things, ask them. I will put some links in the description for extra help and extra information, because these are very basic things. So you can find a lot about this on the internet and some exercises as